Welcome to Dear Younger Me, a 10-part interview video series where we feature some of our very own VetTech alumni students who are currently working in various professional fields. We hope that these videos will give you a glimpse of the possibilities after you graduate for you to set bigger and bolder goals. Enjoy.
Hello everyone, welcome to a new episode of Dear Younger Me. I am Camelia, a Year 1 VetTech student.
And I am Borah, Year 2 VetTech student.
We will be your hosts today. For today, we have a very special guest with us, Rushan. So Rushan graduated from TP VetTech in 2014 and proceeded to Murdoch University where he graduated with honours thereafter. Currently, he holds 3 positions. He is a researcher at the Olive Ridley Project and is an ecological consultant for the Arboriculture Pte. Limited. He is also the project leader for Marine Megafauna Foundation. Let's welcome Rushan. While Rushan, you are juggling 3 roles. Would you like to explain to us what your roles are and maybe introduce yourself and go in depth with what you're doing currently?
Sure. I'll try not to go too in depth to not bore you. I'm an ecological consultant here in Singapore with Arboriculture Pte. Limited. That basically means I do environmental impact assessments if developers want to build on or near forested areas. So we will go out, find out what's out there, and then report back to the developers, and then also report which will be submitted to the government and national parks, who will have a look at it, and basically they would have to follow our mitigations and management programs to try to reduce their impacts on the environment. As a researcher of spatial ecology in the Olive Ridley Project, that basically, I mean, it's a big word. Basically, all that means is that I do research with maps. So we tag satellite, we put satellite tags on sea turtles. We see where they go, and then with some fancy mathematics and statistics, we can figure out why they move to particular areas when they do. And then finally, as a project leader for marine turtles in the Marine Megafauna Foundation, I'm currently busy with some population modeling for sea turtles in 2 places in Indonesia.
So I actually heard from Mr. Alden that you did your SIP in the Maldives. Is that what influenced you to continue working there?
My SIP MP was in the Maldives. It did encouraged me to continue doing work out there. Currently, I'm not there at the moment, obviously, because of the coronavirus. There were plans for me to go back out there and tag some sea turtles and train some of the folks to be able to tag turtles so that the project can get moving on, but you know, it's not working. What's interesting is that when I did my SIP MP, I was actually interning at another company. But since then, the people that were my supervisors there had left the company and they started an NGO. And when I heard that they had started the NGO, I decided to get in touch with them and say, hey, I have this idea for a research project. What do you think? And he said, you know what, you just came in just in time because we landed some money to be able to buy some satellite tags. So this is, you could not have come at a better time, basically. So does it inspire me to go back to the Maldives? I think the region, the Indian Ocean, has a lot of potential for the kind of research that we're doing. So it's always good to go to where there isn't a lot of stuff done. The important lesson that I want to impart on you is that when you do go for your SIP MP, be friendly, be likable. It's very important. A lot of people think it's quite edgy to be, not very well liked or anything like that, but it's not. Your networking and your networks are very, very important, and they might be important for you in the future.
Do you have any memorable experience that you could share with us?
There was one. So what we were doing in the Maldives was a captive rear and release program. So we usually bring in little tiny hatchlings about this size, just 2 from each nest or something. And then we had 2 hatchlings about this size that we realized that it probably wouldn't be a good idea to hang on to them and release them a year later. So we decided to take them out and release them. Where we released them was way out in the Indian Ocean. So from the Maldives, we went out to the Indian Ocean. It was quite an experience because my supervisor and manager at the time, Dr. Martin Stelfox, he would see something in the water, then he'll go there, and then he'll say, okay, let's keep going. So he'll keep going, and then he'll see something else in the water, and we'll go there, check it out, and there's nothing there. So we went out into the middle of the Indian Ocean, and then we said, okay, let's do some free diving in the ocean. And you jump in, and it's really, it's 4,000 meters deep, where we were, 4 kilometers. When you jump in, there's no coral reef, there's no fish, it's just the abyss. And so we decided to do some free diving, and I would go down, and I held my breath for quite a bit. And I think at the time I wasn't a certified free diver, but it was that moment that I realized that, you know, this is probably a lot better than scuba diving, because it's very quiet, it's very peaceful, you're really part of the environment. And I went back up, and I was like, this is something I gotta do for the rest of my life. So we released the sea turtle hatchlings, and then we went back into the Maldives, and that was probably the most memorable experience, to be out. I mean, it's quite terrifying, it can be, but the thing is it's once you kind of give in to the fact that you're not going to be sucked down into the water, or that there's nothing deep in the water that's going to come out and get you, it's quite peaceful. It's quite I mean, I don't want to sound cliche, but it was life-changing, and it was, and I don't know how else to put it other than that really cliche way.
So how did you feel when you went diving for the first time?
I mean, scuba diving. When I talk about when I went scuba diving for the first time, that was, I mean, it was pretty exciting. I remember being very afraid to breathe, even with the regulator in my mouth, because a normal mammalian reflex, and we have this as babies, is that when water is put onto our face, we hold our breath. So this is very counterintuitive and very, it goes against our very primal evolution. So I got over that. It was quite a thing to be a part of the marine environment and to be very close and stay underneath for quite a long time. But when you talk about free diving, the thing about scuba diving is that when you're down there, you blow up a lot of bubbles. And the thing is that fish don't come up to you, sharks don't come up to you, turtles don't come up to you, because they're kind of looking at you like, what's this thing blowing bubbles all the time? But when you free dive and you go down and you kind of stay at the bottom, it's really quiet because you're not breathing, obviously. And when you just sit in one space, you start to realize that things that you never thought were intelligent, like fish, are incredibly curious creatures. Like when they see you go down and hide behind something, they'll come and check you out. They'll be like, what is that? And turtles kind of do the same thing, and sharks will do that as well. So sharks will kind of come up to you, be like, oh, what is that? And they kind of circle you for a bit, and it's very immersive. And it feels like, I mean, with the scuba tank and scuba diving stuff, you kind of continue to live within this bubble of what scuba gear is. But when it's just you and the water, there's nothing between the two of you, and you're really part of the environment. And that, I feel, is something that a lot of people should try and do. Instead of scuba diving, maybe do some free diving instead. That's my top tip. But if you want to be a marine biologist, it's always a good idea to have scuba diving cert as well. But get both.
That sounds really, really interesting. So how did you start really realizing your passion for marine life?
My passion for marine life. When I went to the Maldives, I met with my manager, and he said to me, okay, there are 3 things that we think you can do. You can do something on sharks, you can do something on dolphins, or you can do something on sea turtles. And I thought, and I asked him, what do I do on sharks? And it's like, you just kind of count them. And I said, okay, then what do I do with dolphins? And he said, you just kind of count them. And I said, okay, what do I do with sea turtles? And it's like, oh, we're tagging 2 sea turtles tomorrow, and we're releasing them, and we have a captive release program. So we've got turtles in the tanks over here that you'll be taking care of. I'm like, you had me at hello. I'll do the turtles. And that kind of set me off, because because just like you guys, I was a vet tech. And just because at least in my time, I don't know about Alden's time. So just like you guys, when maybe it's different, it's different in your time now, but in my time, a lot of the animals that we looked at were cats, dogs, small animals, some exotics like rabbits and birds and fish. But other than that, you didn't really learn how to deal with like reptiles, let alone sea turtles. So I think the most important thing for you guys to remember is that just because you haven't studied it doesn't mean that the principles that you learn cannot be applied. So the things that you learn while handling cats and dogs, safety of the restrainer, safety of the animal, don't do it, try to use less first and then increase it some more. Try to reduce the amount of time that you restrain the animal, these kind of things. These kind of things are applicable to sea turtles. So when I went there as a vet tech intern, at least, I applied these things to sea turtles. And that was what allowed me to continue working with the sea turtles. So when it came to taking care of the sea turtles, because I had to spend so much time with them, because every week we had to measure them. If they were sick, then I'd have to treat them. I'd have to put them in containment tanks. And it's just that it's just being around them all the time that really kind of got me interested in working with sea turtles. And I thought this, if I have to work on a marine animal, this would probably be it, because I had gained so much experience there already. So I figured I'd just keep going with that.
So do you have any advice that you can give someone that's still trying to find out their passion and what they love to do?
I think I have a couple of pieces of advice. I think the first one would be to try as many things as you can. Some of us are able to do that more than others. So a lot of us are able to go for internships here and there, and to a lot of different countries. So it's first thing is try as many things as you can. The second thing I think is if you're not able to do those kind of things, just take whatever comes and see what you can get out of it. And the reason I say that is because at the moment I'm working for an arboricultural company. Do you guys know what arboriculture is?
Maybe you can explain to us more?
Sure. So arboriculture is basically being like a tree doctor, basically. So you kind of look at a tree and like, okay, it's leaning this way. Is the roots okay? Is there any injuries? Where's the fungus? What should we reduce the size of the crown? Should the tree just be removed, or should we try to do other things with it instead? So and I have not marine biology, but I have a conservation biology background. My experience is with a lot of sea turtles, but my ecology thing is really just spatial ecology. So when I got the job at this arboricultural consultancy, albeit as an ecologist, I had to help out with a lot of the arboricultural projects. And I kind of said, okay, fine. I mean, I have that background. I do impact assessments. I like being out in the forests, and I've come to really like it. I really like arboriculture. I like climbing trees. I like looking at trees. I like assessing trees. I like trying to look at a tree and try to figure out what's the story with this tree. Should it be kept? What can we do to save it? And if we can't save it, how should it be removed, kind of thing. So that's the other piece of advice that I think that you should take. Is just whatever comes your way, just take it. And I think the third one, and possibly the last one, because that's all I can remember, is to not worry so much. If I was able to tell my 21-year-old self in Polytechnic anything, I think it would be, don't worry about what you're going to do. Don't worry about what life is going to throw at you, because in the end, you're going to do something that you love. And the only way you can discover what you love is if you have an open mind and take everything in as a learning experience. And yeah, if you can just do your best to try to love whatever it is that you do and keep an open mind, you're going to find happiness in what you do. That's what I think. So don't worry so much. That's what I think.
So, backtracking a bit, how would you say your time in TP actually helps you with your jobs?
It helped with my studies. When I was vet tech in TP, I think you guys know, you guys take mathematics and statistics. You guys take cell biology.
Yes.
You guys take, what else? Maybe you haven't taken it yet, but like microbiology and evolution or something like that, or molecular biology or something like that. So these very core biological, biomedical things that you guys kind of, oh, this is painful to learn. It actually is helpful in your studies because if universities see that you have done those courses, you don't have to take them in university. And that's a big deal, especially if you're going to overseas universities. Because for, at least in Australia, at least at Murdoch University, for an international student, a single unit and a single module is like $3,000. So the less courses you can take, the more that you save. And the more that you save, you get to, you know, not put so much strain on your family or on yourself. But what's also important is that because you don't have to take those courses, you actually get to study things that you think are really cool. So I got to skip cell biology. I didn't have to do that. I got to skip, you guys take chemistry, right? Like organic chemistry and physical chemistry and stuff like that. I got to skip all that. I got to skip all these painful chemistry courses, even though I did so badly in them in TP. And I didn't have to do them. I could skip all that boring stuff, and I could really get into like biodiversity, plant evolution, animal evolution and diversity, evolution, genetics and evolution, wildlife management kind of stuff, you know? And like that university experience that I went through was the one that I dreamed of because I was only just solely focusing all of my attention on things that were really cool. So I think for you guys, really, I mean, even if you don't like it, know that it's going to pay off much later in your studies, at least with the university tuition. After that, what I think, well, I mean, when you're in university, you're going to relearn a whole bunch of other skills. Veterinary technology is completely different from conservation biology and ecology, so you will have to relearn everything. But the thing is that because you came from a biology background, it will help you a little bit, especially with the molecular genetics part, because evolution, I remember this one unit I took, genetics and evolution. It's quite conceptual. It's quite hard to grasp because evolution happens in timescales that are beyond human understanding, like millions of years, hundreds of thousands of years. What does that mean? It doesn't mean anything, but it certainly, having a background in genetics really help. So it will definitely help with your studies. As for your working life, maybe not so much. So again, it's one of those things where you don't have to worry about, oh, I don't have the necessary skills. Just go to university and relearn all the skills that you need to get, and then you'll be ready for the workforce. That's it.
What made you decide to major in conservation and wildlife biology?
So I had a few options. It was like, obviously I was going to take something in ecology, so like conservation was something. So there was like marine biology, environmental science, and conservation and wildlife biology. So marine biology I felt was a bit too niche for me. Everything that you learned in, like, well, it wasn't marine biology, it was called marine science. So you get marine science and then you have environmental science. So marine science was very niche. You learn things about marine ecology and obviously how things underwater interact with each other. But then you learn things like oceanography, like how the currents move and how that changes, and how like you get cold water, cold currents and upwellings and this and that, and then you learn about like coastal management and stuff. So when you take a degree in marine science, it was very, very focused to being a manager of marine resources, and it was very specific and totally irrelevant to Singapore. Marine resources here are managed a completely different way that you'd have to relearn everything anyway. So I kind of stepped away from that. Environmental science, I remember I took one. So environmental science, you learn things like atmospheric science, pollution and waste management and stuff like that. So things like that you would do with the National Environmental Agency, air, water, waste, and soil and sound management and stuff. So I remember I began my university career with a double major, one in environmental science and one in conservation biology. So I was sitting in the lecture for atmospheric science, the very first lecture. And I realized that I do not want to take an environmental science course based on that one lecture. So after careful consideration, I decided to drop that major and just stick with conservation wildlife biology. And the reason I wanted to stick with that is because conservation biology is applicable whether you're on sea or on land. You know, so, and you still learn the core things like diversity, plant evolution, animal evolution, wildlife management, and stuff like that, and ecology as well. And I may have lost out on not studying a lot of the marine science stuff, like marine biology or marine ecology, that kind of thing. But the core skills that I really wanted to get was how, in this world, in this day and age, when conservation is at the forefront of everything that we do, whether people choose to understand that or not, how can we make it happen? And I felt conservation biology was good for that, and it was. So I mean, a lot of the other hats that I wear are very driven by conservation principles that I learned from my conservation wildlife biology, whether it's on sea or whether it's on land.
You mentioned that conservation is at the forefront, right? Is that what made you decide to venture into ecology and conservation related career options?
So, well, I mean, the short answer is that I sat in the lectures and I liked it. Mm-hmm. And I figured I might as well keep going. So, but I think, I mean, like you, I'm not saying this to be condescending or anything, but I mean, I've noticed that a lot of particularly Polytechnic students have an idea of what conservation is, and then when they study it or when they start doing it, they realize that it's not exactly what it is that they thought it was. A lot of people think that you get to hold a sea turtle, you get to tag a sea, you get to release a sea turtle, or stuff like that, when it's not. Conservation is really dealing with people. It's dealing with local communities who eat sea turtles and convincing them that you should do something else with them. So like protect them and run tour guides, tourism with them. And that kind of stuff takes years to do. And that has nothing to do with sea turtles. That's all social science. And that's really dealing with local communities. And if that's not your jam, then then the other half of it is you deal with government. And that's difficult anywhere in the world. Trying to convince people to, trying to convince governments that have zero political will to protect these charismatic species by telling them that, look, if you don't protect these, your fisheries will collapse. You will have no food. It's hard. It's really, really tough. And dealing with communities is sometimes easier than dealing with government, but you know, when both sides are not great, then it becomes really difficult. And a lot of people kind of realize, and when people come into conservation and realize that's what a lot of conservation is, a lot of them kind of like, you know what, this really isn't for me. What really has to drive you was what got you interested in the first place. The fact that you are so so enthralled and captivated and romanticized by the things that you want to protect. Every time I see a sea turtle go out into the ocean, I realize that that is what all this hard work is for. And yeah, and it makes everything worth it. It makes all of the difficulties that much more worth it.
So, did you face the same mindset when you initially went into the industry? Like, as you said, like, oh, you thought like conservation was like something else.
Yeah, I did. Well, yeah, I really thought conservation was that. I really thought conservation was like, oh, I get to hang out with sea turtles. I get to do like these National Geographic moments, putting a tag on a turtle and seeing it go and stuff. What I didn't realize is that that's the sexy part of it. The non-sexy part of it that I spent about 98% of my time is coding, data management, and data analysis, writing the papers, and trying to get them published, which is not great. It's not fun. But the thing is that I enjoy, but that's the thing, I'm quite nerdy, I'm quite geeky. I like doing stats, I like coding, I like, writing papers, I like trying to argue my point and that kind of stuff. So I like it. It might not be for everyone. Some people look at that and say, yeah, you're publishing, but you're not actually doing anything on the ground to conserve them. You're just publishing and you're just, forwarding your career in academia, and they're not wrong. So a lot of people would rather go out into the local communities to actually do that and do that kind of work. And that's fine, too. But the thing is that they're complementary to each other. You need good science to be able to know if what you're going to do is right or not. And good science needs to have collaborators from many different countries to be able to take what they have found and put it out into the world and make sure everyone else knows about it. So what did I have that kind of same mindset? Yeah, I did. And I now, being in conservation and doing ecology and that kind of thing, I know what it is, and I'm not fazed. I still want to continue being here. And that's just because I like what I see and I like what I do. So I hope you guys will be able to enjoy that as much as I do.
Do you have any interesting facts or information about conservation that you would like to share?
It's not as bad as it seems. As in the state of a world, the state of our planet. It's not entirely as bad as it seems. The media really like to pick up things that get a reaction. So if you see things on Twitter, you see things on Instagram, you see things on Facebook that really strike a nerve, like thousands of species have gone endangered. We're facing the 6th extinction. Plastic pollution is horrible and terrible now. It's, I mean, those things are bad. There's no sugarcoating it. But there is actually probably as many things that we should celebrate about. For example, the Roundtable for Sustainable Palm Oil within Southeast Asia. We all know palm oil has been a catchphrase, especially a couple of years ago. I think it was 2 years ago or something when the haze hit. Was it 2 years ago or last year or something like that? When the haze hit. And that was pretty bad. All because of the slash and burns that's going on in some of the other countries within Southeast Asia. But the Roundtable for Sustainable Palm Oil is working to make sure that that doesn't happen anymore. And there's been great strides to make that happen. What else? I mean, while there are many species that are going extinct, a lot of species are making a comeback. So I think it's always important to try to remember that there are good things. On Twitter, I don't know if you guys have Twitter or anything, but I do, or on Instagram. If you follow the hashtag conservation optimism, you'll find a lot of good things that are happening in the world, and it's not just to shy away from the fact that there are bad things in the world. There was actually a conservation psychologist that found out that conservationists are around the world are faced with depression, are faced with mental illness because the things that we're working to protect are dying around us, and we feel very alone and very isolated. So conservation optimism is not just good to remember that there are good things on the world, but it's for your mental health. And yes, there are bad things out there. Work towards making them right. But if it doesn't go your way, then remember that there are other people out there succeeding for the things that we are trying so hard to protect, like sea turtles, in my case.
So what would be the most rewarding thing about your job?
Seeing sea turtles, I think. No, honestly, a lot of people think, oh, you see sea turtles all the time. You write about them, you read about them, you tag them, you see them all the time. Every time I see a sea turtle, it's like the first time I see one. Seeing a sea turtle will never get old. Will never get old. Like when I see a sea turtle when I scuba dive, you can hear me scream underwater, wasting all my oxygen. It's that will never get old. And I think seeing a sea turtle healthy, a sea turtle not impacted by human impacts, like it doesn't have an amputated limb or serrations or something like that. Just seeing a sea turtle like that gives me hope that they're not screwed within the next 50 or 100 years.
How do you manage your time juggling between different responsibilities?
That's a really good question. When I find the answer, I'll let you know. I have meetings after this, and I have papers to write after this. It's when I manage to find out how I juggle that time while maintaining a social life, planning a wedding, and planning a house move. I'll let you know. But in the meantime, I don't know.
Conservation has been a rising trend. So for the TP students who are interested in this aspect, do you have any advice on how they can kickstart the process?
I want to reiterate the advice of keeping an open mind. It's not going to be what you expect. It's not going to be sexy. You're not going to dive for sharks. You're not going to do what Ocean Ramsey does and touch great white sharks every 30 seconds or something like that. It's nothing like that. But you have to keep an open mind and remember that whatever work that comes your way is for the good of the species that you're hoping to work with.
I'm not sure if this will sound condescending, but do you think that there is a future for conservation in Singapore? For example, like career options after graduations, etc., and also like misconceptions about biodiversity or conservation efforts in Singapore?
The thing you have to realize about Singapore is that the way our biodiversity is here is quite unique to the world. So because of how it's so unique, not the species that you see, there are smooth-coated otters like everywhere in Southeast Asia. There are herons everywhere in Southeast. There are wild boar everywhere in Southeast Asia. What you need to realize that because of our interesting position between economic and infrastructural development and how we manage our green spaces is also because of how unique it is. It requires a unique and often creative approaches to doing conservation here. Sometimes that's working with the government, sometimes that's working with NGOs, sometimes that's working with academia and research. If you want to work here in Singapore, again, the best advice I can give you is to keep an open mind, because it's not going to be anything that you thought it would be. It's going to be completely different. You're going to go into it and it's like, I could not imagine, this could not be any more different from how I imagined it. And that will be the case. But just remember that what you're doing is important. A lot of the conservation here has to do with education and outreach. We don't have people going out there and eating sea turtle eggs. You do. You get the weird fellow that goes to Batam and then eats sea turtle eggs, and it's like, ooh, that's so nice. But a lot of the things here is you have to remember that a lot of people here in Singapore have never seen a colugo. Like, you know what a colugo is? That's like the flying lemur. They're kind of sit on a tree for hours during the daytime with the eyes wide open, and a lot of people have never seen that before. But when you go out into the forest and you kind of know what you're looking for, they're everywhere. Some people here have never seen snakes. Some people have never seen sea turtles, crocodiles. Some people look at birds, but but no one ever tells them, oh, that's a black-naped oriole. They always go in pairs, they mate for life and that kind of thing. Or a lot of people will look at a bird or will look at like a white-bellied sea eagle, and they'll see it all the time and they'll be like, oh yeah, that's the biggest eagle that we have in Singapore. They're raptors. They live in the mangroves. They eat fish all the time. You can find them in water bodies, and there's one nesting at Gardens by the Bay. You know, it's and just that kind of thing, like, wow, you're so smart. I didn't know that, and now I do, and now I appreciate it more. And you can kind of, for some, I mean, it's gonna be a hit and miss. You're gonna see some people who's just kind of like, I'm only here for my kids. I want to go to McDonald's. But then you get some people, they're like, eyes light up. It's like, I had no idea. That's insane. That's so cool. And when you get that, that's really rewarding, especially here in Singapore. So if you can get people interested here with your conservation and outreach kind of stuff, it's rewarding here in Singapore when that happens. Doesn't happen a lot, but you know, it's good.
All right, so we are on to our last questions. Any advice for your younger self?
Advice for my younger self?
Yep.
I'll say it again. Don't worry about it. Keep an open mind. Take whatever comes your way. So that, and these, if you ask me, make the perfect recipe. Not only for just a happy life, but for you to discover things about yourself and interests that you didn't know you were interested in. And you will like yourself more for it. And that's the kind of romantic kind of, advice I would give. The practical advice that I would give, pick up statistics, pick up coding, pick up mapping. You'll thank me later for it.
Thank you for joining us today, Rushan. Yeah, this has been a really insightful interview. Thank you for your time.
No worries.
Thank you for watching this episode of Dear Younger Me. We hope you have learned more about ecology and conservation-related profession. If you enjoyed this video, remember to like it and subscribe to our YouTube channel where we will be posting more videos about other professions.